So what other things can we take away from these kinds of situations? And by situations, I mean failure, but also success. So as I say, you can worry about what you can change, what you can deal with, what can you do. Dig where you stand. There are things in life you can't do anything about. There's other things you can change. It may not be easy, but you can start here. You can start now. You can do it. A lot of stuff's out of your hands. Some of it's systematic, some of it's personal, some of it you can worry about in other domains of life, like politics. But here now for that job, there's nothing you can worry about for that because it's gone. It's out of your hands. You can think about what you do differently, and I think it's really useful to think about that. If you can identify a point or a question you could have answered differently, preparation you could have done differently, it's worth thinking about that. What could you do better? What was good? What could there have been more of? What could you change? What could you tweak? So I always used to have a strategy of going into interviews where I would try to be positive. So if somebody asked a question where your immediate reaction would be, no, you couldn't do that, I would try not to say, no, you couldn't do that. I'd try and say, that's an interesting question, and this is a way that you could actually frame it. So you avoid saying to someone's face, no, you're wrong. The first really big failure I had at a fellowship interview, I got on a question to which I should just have said, no, I'm afraid that's an incorrect interpretation. What I mean is this. And I tried to apply my be positive rule, and it was wrong. So my be positive rule is not transferable across all situations, and that was not the only reason why the wheels came off that interview, but it was the start, it was the canary in the coal mine that was a suggestion that I was doing things wrong in that situation. It's worth practicing. It is worth trying things. So part of this is the doing stuff leads to stuff. But there are things like giving talks, where literally the only way to get better at doing them is to do them. Thinking about giving a talk will never make you good at doing talks. The only way to get good at doing talks is to do a lot of talks. This is the point where you're allowed to think, Sophie, you're not that good, so don't think you can tell me how to give talks. But it's true, it's simply doing it. And the same is true with interviews. It is really helpful to do mock interviews because it just gets you in the mood. It gives you, and even if none of those questions get asked when you go to the real interview, it's got you sort of slightly more in the zone. You've practiced thinking about it. You've put yourself in that slightly stressful situation. Anxiety is useful. Anxiety is good. Don't worry about anxiety. Don't think you can somehow... There's no point in practice where you get to a point with talks or with interviews where it becomes not stressful. There's a reason why it's stressful. You should take it seriously. You should listen to that. But you can get more comfortable in it. You can feel more confident going in. And there's an element of making your own luck. So this, I think, all I really mean by this is to play to your strengths. So there are things that you do well, and you find in situations those don't hurt you. Build on them. Try them out. Do other things with them. I'll come back to this specifically, but my experience doing stand-up comedy meant that I have got slightly more comfortable using humour, even in situations where it wouldn't necessarily... I'm not doing a talk that's supposed to be funny. And it's the sort of thing you've got about you that you can use, say, if things go wrong. I once had to give a talk in Exeter, and as soon as I started giving my talk, everything, all the AV and everything just closed down. And in the end, I had to close the computer and do an hour-long talk without any AV at all. And... 10 years ago, that would have finished me. I would have been done for. I would have been absolutely overwhelmed with anxiety. And having done some stand-up comedy, and the audience, you can see, getting increasingly stressed out by this. I'm not saying, well, I told a few jokes and it was hilarious, but it was just kind of more confident about it. And I could treat this as the ridiculous situation it is. It relaxes them, it relaxed me, and what was still probably a bit of a nightmare talk was slightly less stressful for everybody.